These were the most pressing challenges that the North Central farmers who responded identified. And I'd like to know a little bit more about what on this list is true for you, maybe some examples, and things that you think belong on this list that you don't see here and you're surprised. Like, why isn't this on the list? So the biggies were soil health, weed management, cover cropping, and GMO contamination. So as you look at that, what do you think is particularly true for you?
Can I ask you what you mean by most pressing challenge of cover cropping in our region?
I think that's most pressing challenge of understanding, incorporating, managing, kind of figuring out how does cover cropping work with my system. Good question.
I see. And for me, it is soil health. I moved, well, I was in Seattle for the last 11 years, but moved back to Minnesota to farm, and we have a small fruit and vegetable operation. And when I look at soil health, I moved into a constant corn and soybean, no organic matter. We're very sandy loam, 30 minutes away from here. So for me, fruit and vegetable, soil health is huge.
And what is your name?
Lori Cox.
Lori Cox is here, and she, for those of you in the back who can't hear, she moved back to Minnesota from Washington?
Seattle.
From Seattle, and is now farming in a very traditional corn, soybean, depleted soils, could we say, area. And so for her, soil health really resonates on this list because she's a fruit and vegetable producer, and that's something that they've been working on in their farm. Yes, sir?
Yeah, question or comments about weeds.
Weeds.
Okay, one of the things that I've noticed is that no matter how hard I research the topic, it's almost impossible to find information on the basic biology. You may be able to find the life cycle, but so far on the bad weeds that I'm dealing with, I find nothing about, for instance, what is the seed production, what is the viability period of that seed in the soil, what is the aggregate soil bank, soil seed bank in there, and what would be the average germination rate of those seeds, so that, and timing. Sometimes the timing, we can figure it out, but how many seeds, or more to the point, how long the seeds from like the Echinocloa, the barnyard grass, or Jack Millet, some people call it, how long do those seeds last in the soil?
So you're looking for better organized, deeper technical information about how these weeds function, what they do, what their life cycle is, what the seed production is, how soon do you have to get to them before the seed is viable? Because some of this stuff, you can cut it, but if the seed is formed, I'm not going to say the word, but you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And some of them, they have to ripen for you to
And some of them you
be
cut
in that
and
position.
they'll pop it out lower. And they'll just keep popping it out lower until they get below whatever you're using to cut the little schmucks.
So sounds like information that we suspect people know, but nobody's really organized it so that it's useful and you can figure out a system that's going to work.
I'm not sure a lot of it is known, particularly the seed bank issues, how big and how durable and at what percentage does it deteriorate or germinate. I think that's sort of primary pre-commercial research. There is stuff out there on the basic life cycle, but not so much on this whole seed bank, which if you're not using like a pre-emergent or something like that, you're in a different kettle of fish. Nobody cares about it if you're going to be throwing pre-emergent at it all the time.
So does anybody else find this fascinating? That weeds have persistently been at the top of organic farmers' bugaboo list since we began farming organically. I mean, persistent, over and over again, every survey, go back in time, weeds, 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 and we still have these basic questions that need to be answered.
Amen, sister, preaching.
Thank you, Brother Scott. Who else has a comment from the front? Yes, ma'am.
Something that I found just going to seminars where they have cover crop, where they're really pushing for the cover crops, it becomes like another input that you have to buy. But some of the growers in my area, we can't grow cover crops and a cash crop in the same year.
Is that because of moisture limitations?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we use what's called a natural cover crop, and that's what other people call weeds. But there's not very much research on the benefits of using what's already in your system as a cover crop, like foxtail millet. There's millet as a cover crop. Someone told me that there's a study in Missouri that some kind of Palmer amaranth is nitrogen fixing. So why not use that as actually a cover crop? Because so long as you plow it down before you put the seeds in, that's basically what people are doing with cover crops.
So here, what Dimitri is saying, I'll just stop me if I get this wrong. What Dimitri is saying is that in her part of the country, it's a real challenge to cover crop because of moisture, and they can kind of choose this year. Either we could have a cover crop or we could have a cash crop, and that sometimes that decision is made for you. And so they do what is called natural cover cropping, which other people say leaving weeds out there. So what she's getting at is how can we manage what is there in the seed bank as a cover crop rather than having it become more of a weed seed problem. So there are some of that, and she especially mentioned Palmer amaranth and nitrogen fixing, and it's interesting that you picked that one out because in the southern surveys, Palmer amaranth was their biggest, most pernicious weed. So it's interesting how those things change. So thank you for that. Anyways, Mr. Scott.
On the weed thing, and then I want to say something else. There's this subconscious fear that everybody has of a weed. I mean, it's unrealistic most of the time, except when weeds go to seed. Then you should be afraid. But I'm the only organic farm in and amongst a lot of conventional farms. And working backwards on that list, they all know that they don't have to worry about contaminating meat. So that's one of the big questions I get asked all the time. How do you prevent that? Because a lot of these guys are starting to think about organic because they're going broke. I would love to think that they're doing it because their hearts are in it, and they want to be best friends with Meg. But sorry, it's a money thing, Meg.
Oh, Todd.
You are special, but
You are special.
but all of those issues there that they're starting to use all around me, and they're asking me questions because they know I've been doing it for so many years, and like the weed question, I don't have the answer. And saying, well, I just know it works, doesn't cut it,
So Scott is talking about the fact that weeds are only misbehave if you allow them to misbehave.
Correct.
And then a little bit more about that people in his neighborhood that are conventional but are starting to ask him questions about his strategies. How many other people are finding that? Are you getting people that are approaching you with what we might call a spirit of inquiry? Like, how are you handling this? How are you doing this? How does an organic farmer do X or Y? Is anybody else
How come
getting?
your soil doesn't flow when mine does?
How come your soil doesn't blow? Who else is getting? Are you getting
So
questions like that?
Yes, because I'm the only one, just like you, around, and I'm small. They're all big around me,
Yep.
but I'm small.
Small farm.
But back to your comment about the weeds, on our 2015 was our first year to be there. So I looked at it and I told everyone around me, I need the organic matter. We're all highly erodible soils around us, USDA. So when I look at that, I start to tell people, you have to look at weeds in a completely different way. Yes, I agree. You cannot go year after year and have foxtail going crazy. But by the time I got my crimson clover on,
By the
What
time
did
I
I
got,
do?
thank you, by the time I got my crimson clover on, they could start to see how it reached up and actually started to smother. So you in effect become like the demonstrator for your area.
whether you want it or not.
Correct, but that begins to tell the story.
And we all know that there are people that are better at organic practices and more successful and have farms we'd like to emulate. But we also know that there are some farms out there that we don't even want to be associated with that person. And so I think that means it's incumbent on all of us to help organic farmers get better, wherever you're starting from, whatever luck or fortune you have in terms of weather or in terms of skill or in terms of whether anybody ever taught you to drive a cultivator. I mean, think about all these young farmers. Did they ever cultivate?
Nope.
Mom and dad might have, grandma and grandpa did, but where are they going to learn these skills? Because a lot of what we do is skill-based, and who is there to teach it? We are. All right, let's move forward a little bit, and then we can come back and maybe talk about some more of these issues, because I sense that there's more to be said, but let's go back with just one quick back. Just little snapshots. You see weeds popping up in every region. There we go. Why haven't we answered these questions yet? Clearly, we need to put the screws on and get some of this work done. Dairy and livestock profitability in the Northeast came up. That has been challenging up there. They also have challenges with their soils. I think we'll see that in a minute. In the South, labor shortages. That was the only region in which labor really surfaced to the top. And I have a sense it's with what's being grown and the techniques and perhaps the sizes of farms. The insect pests they have, drought and excessive rain came up in a lot of different regions. The West, certainly water shortage came up over and over again. Weeds and then also plant diseases. And a lot of that information came from California where lots of fruits and vegetables are grown, but certainly in other Western states there's the huge variety, really runs the gamut of the types of crops and livestock, dairy and other products being grown. Okay, now we can go on. And this is just little snapshots. Water management a priority in the West. This is just the California priorities. I don't have the ones for the entire Western region. But 70% of people are saying that irrigation and drought management, water management is a huge problem for them. Soil health and biology were close behind, but water really was key there. And it doesn't seem like that's going to change anytime soon. Too much or too little? Next. In the southern region, I mentioned the Palmer amaranth, weeds, up to 70%, really saying weeds are our toughest nut to crack here. Research here, you might like this, research into the favored growing conditions of different weeds would be great. If possible, we'd like to create a soil environment that favors crops and hampers weeds through differing nutrient levels. It was something that this farmer was saying, I think that would be a really interesting thing to look at. I suspect there's something going on here, and we need more research into some of these soil crop weed system interactions. Okay, Northeast, the common comments there were a lot related to soil. Need more interaction, research on interaction between soil health and weed management. These things have to be linked. What are the connections? Keeping healthy soils through minimized tillage, beneficial soil microbes. The Northeast has many states have very depleted soils. I mean, they were forest soils to begin with. They weren't very productive. And now after a couple of centuries of cropping, there's some real production issues and real depletion issues in the soil out there in terms of tilth, in terms of nutrient level and biological activity. So I'm actually not surprised that this came up. Soil building and nutrient management, and that's 74 people into soil health on the East Coast, in the northeastern states. So here, in the north central region, where most of us are from, soil health, weed management, cover cropping, GMOs, pollinator health, this nutritional quality, and then again livestock health. And that is something that's true certainly for the organic dairy sector, which is pretty small in our part of the country that I belong to, and I can advocate for the great properties of weed control that cows provide. They're a great biological control. They change the way I see ragweed. But also this, the emerging meat and poultry market that is out there waiting to be served. There's some infrastructure difficulties in getting organic beef and getting organic poultry and organic eggs. That's beginning to change slowly, but those farmers are saying, this is a market we want to fill. This is a piece of our organic system that we want to have livestock in, and promoting the health of these livestock is really important to us. Next. Now, the north central region was more concerned about GMO contamination than any other region in the country. It was far more likely to be raised by north central growers. And we had farmers saying things like, we need more published research on the effects and differences of GMO versus non-GMO. Farmers want to know this. We think consumers want to know this. And also what effect that GMOs are having on pollinator health, some suspected connections there. What's the truth? Well, let's look at this. And then Kansas, I know there's some Kansans here. Yep, good Kansans. Corn pollination differences. We'd like to know, people say it can travel a mile. People say it can travel 500 feet. People say it can travel 20 miles. What really is going on here? I have a friend who's not in the north central region who suggested at one point that organic farmers all plant blue corn in the buffers and then have that be a very visible evidence come harvest time at how far corn pollen really does travel when their neighbor showed up to the elevator with bin loads of blue kernels. And say if you,
I did it to
I am not advocating that you do this, I'm just saying that somebody brought this up. And Scott, what do you want to say?
I grow purple corn for sunflower.
What, purple corn, blue corn?
And I did it to the seed corn company.
It's different.
Now that's mean.
I didn't know they were seed, you know.
I'm just kidding.
They,
So-
they came to me and told me that if we would have known that you had colored corn growing, we would have paid you to destroy your crop.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute, I want you to destroy your crop.
Your crop.
And he goes, what do you mean? Ours is a valuable commodity or something to that effect. And I said, and mine's not? I mean, what?
So Scott planted some purple corn adjacent to a seed corn production field, and the seed corn company was not at all pleased and thought that Scott should have destroyed his crop because it was
It was a 300-acre field, and they
300
told me
acre
that
field.
50 to 75 acres of it had purple corn growing.
and they said 50 to 75 acres. So,
So they're 100-foot buffer.
They were gonna sue us till we told them to jump in the creek.
well, okay. Well, so if you want to know more about this exciting event, I suggest that you have a beer with Todd and Scott later. But I think what we're getting at here is GMOs and GMO contamination are often, would you agree, are often poo-pooed by people who say, oh, it really doesn't matter that much, it doesn't travel, it doesn't affect anything. Well, when you can see what it really does, how far it goes, that provides a different level and different kind of evidence. So, I'm just saying.